Hi everybody and welcome to another video. If you're a little bit curious why I look a little bit messed up, well, I do not feel very well, but there is one thing and one reason why I have to make a video today, because today between the 13th and the 14th of December we have the peak of the Geminids. Now in my last video I made a short science video, so if you're curious about it, just take a look there and you get some more insights about meteors, where they come from, and also a little bit more about the Geminids. And there I said that the Geminids have a parent body, namely 3200 Phaethon. And the question is, why do we think this is the parent body of the Geminids? And for this, we'll use Python. We'll use a rather, I would say, simple equation, but a little bit a mess to program. And without further ado, I would say we switch now to my screen, and yeah, it worked. I just tested it out. And we go here to my GitHub repository. The link is in the description. Here we have two things you need to do. Of course, you can clone the repo, don't worry about that. We go to the databases, then we go to meteors, and we have here the Parquet file, Edmond Meteor Parquet. The Edmond file, or the Edmond network, is a meteor network that provides us with thousands and thousands of meteors or meteor orbits. And for this, we have the data from 2001 to 2017. And I also selected them from end of November to end of December for all the different years, so that we have a file of around 50,000 orbits. Now, after downloading these, we can also go here to Compressed Cosmos, and there we have the file Geminids and Phaethon, where we simply click on where it is. They're open in Colab, and then you have everything here running if you have a Colab account. Don't worry, it doesn't cost anything because we don't need a GPU, and we simply need just something to execute the Python code. The Edmond Parquet file are already uploaded here simply in the files folder, just in the root, and already executed the first two parts. The first thing is that we have here the meteor data frame, around 40,000 meteors, and we have 5 orbital elements we need just in a few seconds, namely the perihelion, so the closest distance between the meteor and the sun in AU, the eccentricity and the inclination, argument of ascending node, and argument of periapsis, 3 different angles provided in degrees. Now, something that is a little bit more confusing, I got it from a paper called Meteoroid Streams that trace to candidate dormant comets by Peter Jeniskins from around 2007. We need something called the Dsh parameter, and the Dsh parameter is here, the second line. Now, if you're a little bit confused why I'm showing it like this and why I'm showing the paper or so, showing or displaying the papers is not allowed. If it's OpenSS, you can do it, or if it's on archive, that's fine. But in this case, unfortunately, it's only available behind a purchase wall, and I have the I have the document. I purchased it, so I was able to read it. Actually, I have it already from years back when I did my PhD, also with some parts about meteors. So I just had to go and crawl in my own documentation folders where I have all the PDFs in the different science papers. And the Dsh parameter is something from the 60s, so that didn't change a lot since then. Well, the original D parameter is defined here with the eccentricity, the perihelion, and also the inclination. But the Dsh is an adaptation. And the question is, of course, what is this weird function? It takes 2 orbital elements, orbit 1 and orbit 2, and computes a dimensionless parameter. If the value is smaller than 0.2, it is likely that these orbits are dynamically or astrodynamically linked. If it's smaller than 0.1, it's strongly correlating, let's say. This equation, though, is empirical. So there is there are some derivations and so on, but all in all, it's important for you to know that there are also other new parameters, I think now in total 4 or 5 D criteria, but we will use the classical one. Now, what I did is I took the equation from the bottom to the top. I wrote everything now in LaTeX. And what I tried to do is to go with the lower up approach. I programmed these equations first to reach the Dsh criterion. So this is like the function. And we see here that I have 2 dictionaries for orbit 1 and orbit 2, first converting it in radians, then computing the first part here, the d squared, which is the simple one. So the top part here. And then I have here the I 21 equation that should resemble this I12. Okay, I just reversed the numbers. And then we have the omega 21, which, yeah, is this equation here. Now, I really followed the paper. I even used literally this different mathematical operators, like, for example, this cross as the multiplication, just to be sure, because I was a little bit paranoid to mess things up. So if you want to help me, then I would kindly ask you to go on the Python code from the bottom to the top, yeah, accordingly, like here, because this is how it is, let's say, nested, how the equation is nested. The thing is, please help me if there is a mistake, because as I said, I'm a little bit a mess today. So there's a certain probability that is not zero, that there is a mistake. Now, the question is also why I introduced this clamp function to clamp between the certain values -1 and 1. And I want to be honest, because this is something I suggest if you are a beginner in coding, do it by yourself, learn it, read the papers, read documentations and so on. If you have a certain level of expertise, it's also good to use sometimes AI if you are struggling. And here I actually used it because I had a lot of math domain errors, and I was thinking due to the different trigonometric functions I have, and there are a lot of them. It's not complex, but a lot of trigonometric functions. I have maybe a definition error. Yeah, so there are like the values, especially in the arccosinus. Where is it? Here, that these values are not within the defined range of -1 to 1. And the AI suggested, hey, you know what? If the value is 1.000001, which can happen, just reduce it to 1. And well, this is what has been then introduced, what I added, and it worked then perfectly. So sometimes it's very helpful to use these tools, and it's not a shame at all. But yeah, you have to know what to do, because I do not think, I tried it out actually, the AI doesn't know anything about this DSH stuff. Now let's execute this part here, and then we take the orbit of Phaethon. Now these are the values I simply took from Wikipedia, the perihelion, the eccentricity, and also the other parameters. And then I am executing the computation. I compute this Dsh parameter. So I compare each orbital element of each meteor with Phaethon and add a new column. Now in total we have around 40,000 meteors. You have seen it in the very bottom, in the very top. And the question is, how many are now linked to Phaethon? So we take the criterion of lower than 0.2, and here we have around 15,000. Yeah, if we do it, for example, with 0.1, we have even 12,000. And let's say 0.05, then we have 6,000. So yeah, we have some kind of statistics. And of course we have this huge bias, right? Like almost half of it of this 40,000 have this criterion, because as I said, I filtered the data. Yeah, I just filtered them for December. So be aware of this. This does not include all the meteors all over the year. You can see that if you compare the perihelion values and the eccentricity and also the inclination and so on, these values seem to be similar. And this is what this DSH criterion and also other D criteria try to achieve to provide a metric that gives us this similarity before the orbits. The DSH criterion and also the others, they have the limitations. They have their, not errors, but they have their limits, so to speak. And you have to be aware of these limits. We will not cover them today, maybe in a longer video. But this is all you need to compute the relationships of meteors and also the parent body. Now you can also compute the relationship between each individual meteor to see who are building some kind of groups. But be aware that, of course, you have to compute 40,000 times 40,000 different combinations. And this may take some time. And I don't know if pandas can handle 40,000 columns and also 40,000 rows. You have to see it. I really don't know. Anyway, I hope you learned something today. I hope you will enjoy the Geminids in a few hours if the weather is good. If not, you can take a look at this video. You can play around a little bit with the code, also with Stellarium, as I showed you last time. And otherwise, enjoy the video afterwards. But at this point, you will probably have seen the video. Anyway, before I forget what I want to say, thanks for watching. Have a nice day and see you next time.